Hi there, everyone. I am with Robin Lockhart. He's actually a youth worker, a good 20 years experience. Actually, to call him just a youth worker probably doesn't do it justice. So I'll probably just leave that to you, Robin, if you can, just to frame what you do, if that's okay.
Yeah, I do work with young people, and I have been called a youth worker and often call myself a youth worker, but I think you're right. There's so many different facets to that kind of work. Um, I've also been called a coach. I've been accused of doing therapy and counselling and all kinds of other stuff too. To summarise what I do, I suppose, it's this. I have meaningful conversations with people, quite often young people, quite often their families, and quite often about some quite difficult challenges.
Got you.
Over the years, I've worked with people in trouble with the legal system, with substance issues, sometimes in prisons or homeless, everything you can imagine. And it basically comes down to having powerful, meaningful, potentially transformational conversations with people that get beyond whatever it is that's enabling them to put up with where they are in their life,
Got
and
you.
helping people to try and make some sort of a growth and progress. It's beautiful. I love it. It's a privilege. And I also recognize that it's not me that does the progressing. I might ask a question that enables them to get to the point of where they see something differently. I started calling it the art of perception.
Okay.
Over the last year or so. I met a great guy, Bob Leaf.
Okay.
Actually, I met him when we were together in Jamie's thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I bumped into the guy in a cafe. He's 87 years old, and he's now one of my mentors. And he was one of the world's biggest PR people. And I met him in a cafe, just by chance. And he started to talk about his work, and was going on about building a global PR empire. He was the first person ever to do PR in a communist country, and he's done PR for whoever you can imagine.
Sounds
Massive
like an
company,
interesting bloke then. Huh?
huge individuals. And then halfway through, he just said, "What do you do?" And I told him what I do. Pretty much the same as I've just told the viewers here. And he said in his big New York accent, he said, "So we do the same thing." Oh, no, we don't. You do PR. And he said, "No, you help people to see things differently. That's the art of perception." So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Oh, that seems really clear. So thank you for that. I was going to ask you about the community bit as well. And that said, what you've just said, it is communication, right? You're trying to help people, but I guess a big part of that is the narrative, weaving the story, connecting with people and,
Yeah.
framing it in such a way that people get compelled to, get involved or watch it or support it, etc.
No, you're right. And I think that there's something in what you've just said that is the key to this stuff. People often seek help from lots of different places. So they might go to a doctor, they might go to a therapist or a counselor or a teacher or a mentor or a family member. But if they're seeking help from that other person, it's this kind of deficit where you've got the person looking for the help here and the other person up here, whether it's a professional or a family member.
Yeah.
As long as the person seeking for the help is looking to the other person for the answers, they're on a hiding to nothing. We can't give them the answers. We can't provide a solution. A doctor can give you a pill or some medicine that is part of the deal if it's that kind of a challenge. But the reality of these interactions is that I go into those interactions knowing that the other person has their solution. It's in their blind spot. They haven't seen it, and that may have gone on for years, and it may have led to some pretty horrific stuff. But if they can shift their perception enough to see things differently, something changes. It's like it snaps. And knowing that they have to do it is, I don't need to tell them that, they feel that. Yeah. And just in feeling that, it brings them up to the same level. It's a conversation, peer to peer. Doesn't matter about the age, doesn't matter whether they're homeless, doesn't matter what situation they're in. It's one human being talking with another human being and exploring a topic that they bring. Yeah. On their terms. It's on their terms. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's been called various things over the years, and I haven't really changed what I do over the years. And over the last sort of 5 to 7 years, people have been calling it coaching. That seems to be a phrase that gets thrown around a lot these days. But for me, it's about conversation. And I mean, the original meaning of the word conversation is something about change. I can't remember the exact definition, but it's something about transformation and change.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, as humans, we're built for that connection and to have human to human conversations, right? It's just communication. And I love what you said about you see it. It seems like you see it really clearly that the other person's always got the ability to create insight or fresh thinking around something they might have been stuck with for maybe even 20 years. And, you know, me too. There's lots of things that it took me way into my, you know, well into my adult life to
All of
really,
us, yeah.
oh, okay. But
Well, that's
then,
the way it works,
yeah.
right?
And funny enough that when we get stuck, it seems like we're the only one, right? We feel separated. And as you say, as soon as you get to that same level, regardless of age, experience, what you've done in life, status, all of that stuff melts away, right? And then that connection is where I guess the good stuff happens, right?
Totally. And it can only ever be that. And I mean, there's several things I think that make human beings what we are. Um, Obviously, we have words, so we can converse with words, which is a huge positive thing, but also can be a really complicated, challenging stumbling block, because I have an intended meaning and you hear something different, and in the middle there's an argument or a confusion. But there's also as you say, the connection. So human beings collaborate. You know, other animals collaborate. You know, there are lots of pack animals and herd animals and animals that you know communicate with each other in other ways, but they don't seem to collaborate in the same kind of way as us.
Mm.
And I think that the creative element of our beings,
Mm.
the thing that sets us apart from the rest of the animal kingdom, is language and art.
Yeah, totally agree. I was talking to Mira about it last night. Actually, we talked about the history of creativity because
Mm.
you know, it's a subject I love. You know, we could talk about it forever, right? And exactly what you just said there about we've evolved. You know, we grew bigger brains, I guess. And again, this is the theory because we went there, right? But
Yeah.
they reckon that you know we started gathering around campfires, right? And that led to you know telling stories and communicating, and then it grew into all of the different languages that we have around the planet, right? And that is something that kind of set us at the top of the food chain simply because there's lots of complex other beings and animals, right? But the problem is that they don't have the ability to communicate like we do.
Mm.
They don't have language and they can't crucially tell stories to each other.
And a lot of them communicate in different ways far better than us.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not to say that we don't have those abilities. So, you know, the thing that we call instinct in animals, we have that, but we've been brought up and kind of trained over generations to ignore it.
By digitization as well, I guess, right? And the
Yeah,
internet.
I think that, you know, many generations ago, we as a people, human beings, thrived on wisdom,
Yeah.
deep wisdom and knowledge that we have innately about who we are, how we function, our place in the world, our place in our family, in our tribe, all of that. There was then a shift, and it kind of goes along with written word. When we invented writing and written documents, it seems that human beings shifted the importance to knowledge
Mm.
and learnt information, which is wonderful. I love learning and I love reading, and it's all a great thing. But when we take up knowledge as being the primary focus rather than incorporating wisdom and knowledge, we kind of put the wisdom to one side.
Mm.
And I think that's when we started to lose our animal instinct, which is hugely important.
Yeah, and I guess
Then there was another development where we went from knowledge into information.
Yeah.
And that's the whole digitization and the information age. And I think now we're on the cusp of an even more diluted version of all of that. And we're just into data now.
Yeah, and data's great.
Data's great, information's great, knowledge is great. But if you do it all without the wisdom,
Yeah.
innate knowledge, you're missing something.
Yeah, well, wasn't it Einstein to say you can't go into a problem with the same thinking and that same knowledge? You need to download. And the only way you can do that is actually, you need to have lost your way in a certain way. You know, you need to be like, oh God, I haven't got the answer. And then eventually, boom, that can only really, correct me if I'm wrong, come from wisdom, right?
Yeah, and there's a saying, I mean, I think this is probably a saying I've heard from my Jamaican friends over the years, is that in every mistake there's a new style.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, it is by making mistakes that we discover something new, and if we are afraid of making mistakes, we're never going to make progress.
Yeah, and then connecting that to the youth work.
Yeah,
I think it's you know, you're doing amazing work there. It's a gift. to be able to work with young people to say, look, go out and fail, because that's the sweet spot. That's where you're going to find the most amazing journeys and pathways open it up.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, when I grew up, I don't know about you, Robin, but I was told, don't fail. You must be strong. You mustn't show any weakness.
Well, this is the thing that stops kids putting their hands up.
Yeah, which is...
I might have the answer. I'll give it a try. They only put their hands up if they're sure they've got the right answer. Not all kids and not all the time, but there's something about that exploration. And, you know, even as a kid, I can remember going out for family drives into the countryside. You know, I was born in Africa, moved to Scotland, and came to England when I was a teenager into London. In Scotland, we would go out for drives, and I can remember my mum and dad like just saying, we come to a junction, and they say to me and my sister, left or right. So we would choose, and there was this concept of you're not lost. You're not lost if you enjoy the journey, which I love. And it is that thing about just going out and seeing what happens. There's something. I mean, I've seen on your Facebook group a lovely diagram the other day in the mind takeaway about, you know, the worries that we have being the big circle,
yeah,
and then within that the worries about the things that might happen, and then within that the tiny little amount of things that actually do happen. And it's the same thing. If we go out into the world with this sense of wonder and this sense of curiosity and this sense of, well, I'll give it a go. You never quite know how far you'll be able to take something and how much you'll be able to achieve until you try it. You can think about it forever. You can stress about it. You can get anxious about it until you've done it.
And also, I think
the mind becomes real. It's
yeah, I think we limit ourselves as well, don't we? Because anyway, I spend a lot of time, you know, most of my life worrying about stuff that's not happened yet, which is, you know, it makes me chuckle. But
or worrying about the stuff that has already finished.
Yeah. And I think we limit the amazing things that have not yet happened. To be able to guide young people and point them to that there's many possibilities, and that if you just, you know, like you say, just get into the journey part, then...
We've been doing this project in my home borough, Waltham Forest in East London. And so in 2019, Waltham Forest became the first ever London Borough of Culture.
Cool.
The mayor has, you know, every year there'll be a new borough of culture. And there's money that comes with it for the local authority to put on creative and cultural activities. And we've had all kinds of stuff. We've had a concert called Africa Express. We had 100 artists in a big top up on the plains next to Epping Forest in the borough, in Leytonstone. Amazing world-class artists, all curated by Damon Albarn from Blur.
Nice, okay.
100 artists during that night came up and performed. And at the end of the night, most of them were on stage. And he brought Blur out. So the whole of Blur was there too. It's an amazing event. We've had, you know, Sir Matthew Bourne, who's a local guy who's grown up and become this world famous choreographer, going into primary schools and doing dance with little kids in Waltham Forest. We've had all of this stuff. And we put together a project called Eastside Story for young people in the borough. And we managed to get it commissioned by this Borough of Culture collaboration. But the main kind of central theme of this is that we all get told stories when we grow up, or while we're growing up, about who we are, what we can be, what we must never even consider being. And we get told that by our family, our friends, our neighbours, the teachers, the police, the media. Yeah, everybody's got a story about who we are. We tell ourselves stories about who we are, and we also tell ourselves stories about who we must never consider being. But none of them are real. None of them are true, unless we start to believe them. And it's in that believing that we make it true.
Yeah.
And saying this so we work with two groups of young people based on two different housing estates that are, you know, historically have had rivalries, and some of the people there are involved in, you know, youth violence, and they're nowhere near as bad as lots of people believe them to be. And not all the participants came from the two estates, but we met on two separate estates for 1 month, and sat in a circle. The only thing missing was the campfire that you referred to. It's central to the work I do. It's, you know, coming into a circle, sitting in a circle, and having these powerful conversations that get underneath things, that go beyond your age and your ethnicity and economic status and you know, what you do for a living, all of that stuff. Just human beings sitting in a circle with a space for learning in the middle. And we sat them down and we just said, this is weird, isn't it? Like, we don't do this enough. Human beings should be doing this more. Human beings used to always do
Can I
this.
ask you about that? Because isn't it funny that the very thing that, as you say, we've evolved, you know, it's almost not one of our most natural states,
Yeah.
but somehow it just got lost in the mix of this information overload and everything else, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, circles of humans having conversations are part of our, it's the way we solve problems.
Mm.
If we can't sit down as a tribe, as a community, and say, what's going on, mate? You seem to be really agitated today, or, you know, why did you steal his motorbike, or why did you smash up his house, or why did you wreck, whatever it is? What can we do to help you? What we do as a society, particularly whatever the Western society means, we take people away from the community, and put them in a separate place and hope that they get better. And it hasn't been working. You know, there are communities across the globe that have, if somebody has a mental health episode, they don't remove them, they bring them into the heart of the community and hug them.
Yeah.
And just ask them, what's going on for you? Let's take it away from this thought, mind-based thing and make it real. Get the words out, get the feeling out, bring the community together, and we'll find a solution. And when we sat these young people down and just said, no, this is our learning space, and in the middle, there's nothing at the moment. It's empty. And we're going to meet twice a week for a whole month. Then we're going to go away and we're going to meet the other group from the other place. And they had all of these preconceived stories about who these other people would be. And we're going to meet them in the countryside, spend a weekend together, and then we're going to come back. And 8 weeks later, we're going to put on a stage show called Eastside Story, loosely based on West Side Story. And they all went, on what? And we said Romeo and Juliet, and they all went, and what? What? And then we got into, what is that? What are the themes? And the themes are the same. It's about love. It's about hate. It's about family. It's about terror.
It's about what happens in every
community. Rivalry. It's all of that. And it's still happening because it's a human story. And we said there's nothing in the middle of that circle right now. And the only way this is going to work is if you contribute. We can't force you to come. But once you're here, participation, attendance is not mandatory, but participation is really. How are we going to do a stage show if we don't start to share your stories? Because the themes of this stage show are your stories. So we had these young people that came from local schools, local college, the pupil referral unit, youth offending team. One guy we met who was homeless but now has a place at the YMCA. And they range from 12 to 23. Which again is beautiful. Most youth projects are, 12 to 15, 15 to 17. Yeah, there's clear delineation. We just said, look, if you're young and you live in the borough and you want to do this, come and get involved. And I mean, I'll put some links that you can put up with so that your viewers can have a look at that. We've done a short film of the process for one of the funders.
I was going to say, I watched it and it blew me away. It actually gave me goosebumps. Just
that girl that was struggling to speak. Said, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said, I find it hard to express myself because what I've got to say isn't worth hearing. Basically, something like that. Yeah. She really struggled at the beginning. She was, even to say much more than hello and this is my name was tough for her. At the residential, she discovered her voice in many ways. I mean, we had a little half an hour. We said, go away and see if you can write a song or a rap or a poem or be creative for half an hour. Come back and show us what you've done. It doesn't matter how good it is. I'm going to try and I'll be rubbish and that's okay because it's only half an hour. What could you possibly do in half an hour? She came back with a song and sang it. And one of the guys, we had various different creatives as partners in the project. So we had a drama group called Raw Academy, close friends of mine who run a thing called the Song Corporation. Bob Singer, who I do the I Love Youth Work thing, was there doing the coaching with me. And this girl, just even now, I'm feeling it. She brought the room to tears. Every single person in that room was in floods of tears, and she was mobbed. It was like a rugby scrum when she finished the song.
Just to give her a hug, right? Yeah.
Just jumped on her. She blew our minds, and she had a breakthrough. She had an insight that she realised that she's got some talent. I mean, her voice is phenomenal. And her acting ability is phenomenal, just naturally. She's never been to lessons. She's never had any instruction in any of that. She found something within herself during this process.
Right there and then on the spot.
Just went boom. And that's what this project was all about. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful to have people in the room. I mean, there was a moment I can remember in the early sessions where she had this story running about how shy she was.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I've always been shy. You know, my mum's shy and I'm shy. And she's had quite a tough time. You know, her family have had some challenges and, you know, been things going on in their life. And I don't remember if it was me or Bob, but one of us said to her, you're not shy, you're selfish. And she was like, what? And the rest of the group were like, you can't say that, what do you mean? And we said, well, we know that she's got some talents and we know that she's got some gifts that she may not have discovered them yet, but she's keeping them to herself at the moment.
Wow, yeah.
We need this. We're a team putting a show together. You're hiding it and keeping it to yourself. But forget the show. The world needs you. For you to keep your voice, your ideas, your skills, your talents, your knowledge, your wisdom, to keep that to yourself is selfish. And that was just enabled her to go, oh, and a little shift of perspective. And then she just went, bam. She's now like, I mean, she's 19, so she's a bit of a mother figure or a mentor for some of the younger kids. And she said to me the other day, we were doing a one-to-one, which we've continued after the stage show. She said the biggest thing that she got personally from the project was, how did she phrase this? I'm now comfortable in groups. And I thought she was talking about the specific group of the young people who did the stage show.
Yeah.
She said, no, I'm just comfortable in all groups now.
Mm.
And I was like, that's a massive difference, that she's managed to feel okay in her own skin. And that will enable her to go on and do so much more than she would have possibly ever done before. Which you had this limiting story of her being shy, no one wants to listen to me, I've got nothing to contribute. It's a common thing. I was like that as a teenager.
Yeah, me too.
I was painfully shy.
Yeah, I hated school. I didn't want to speak in front of anyone. As you say, put my hand up in case the fear of getting stuff wrong. And yeah.
I mean, I was the kind of kid that I wasn't super clever. I was coasting in school. I did okay. But if I'd heard that, for instance, you know, next Tuesday there's going to be a certificate day and you're going to have to get up on stage and shake the headmistress or the headmaster's hand, I would pretend to be sick.
Yeah.
And within an hour of pretending to be sick, I would actually be sick.
Mm.
I would talk about a headache or talk about a stomach ache, and it would manifest, and I would get this thing. And you know, we're now in an age where, you know, that stuff is being supported by science.
Mm. Yeah, we are what we think, right? And then people go, "Oh, what does that mean?" It's not just a mental thing. There's a physical thing. You know, if you really believe that you're gonna, you know, mess up your words, there's a physical thing. You get sweaty, you get hot, and then it might not even be. It might be in a month's time, but you get that feeling immediately, right?
Yeah. You
project yourself there, and you're like, "Oh shit, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be
real." You make it real. I mean, and everybody, science included, doctors, everybody, all the skeptics, and believe in the placebo effect. The positive, you know, if you take this pill, it will make you better. Will make you better, even if it's a sugar pill. And the opposite is also true.
Yeah.
But you know, the Dr. Bruce Lipton stuff and you know, all of that epigenetics and all of that stuff it's evidence now on a quantum level. Your cellular structure changes if you focus on negativity and if you focus on all of that difficult, challenging stuff.
Yeah, well, I totally see it. And again, I haven't experienced it in a level where I've repaired my body from something, but I've spoken to many people around how transforming it can be. You know, if you get a life-changing illness. I was speaking to George, who we both know, right, recently about when he had cancer.
Yeah.
And just by having that shift, as you said, just by going, well, I could just give up and accept my fate and it's over. Or I could go, actually, what can I benefit from this situation? What am I going to learn in the next year? And that's what he did. And it actually transformed his life.
Yeah.
And you know, after having a life-changing illness that most people would give up the fight, he said it was one of the best years of his life.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Bob, my colleague Bob, again, he has this amazing ability to, like, he doesn't tolerate why questions. He just bans them. He says, asking why is, again, it's a spiral. It's a hiding to nothing. That's why little children love why, because you can never be wrong when you say why. You can always respond with why. There's no end to why.
Yeah.
If you ask how, you get some sort of resolution. So even in the situation where things are really negative, if you start to ask yourself, how could this be good news? How can I make this good? And that, in this youth project, was one of the main ways that they became able to explore their creativity. I mean, there was a couple of guys in there that were, aspiring rappers. There was some kids in there who were doing drama at school, but they never performed. And when they performed, we did 2 shows as part of this Borough of Culture event, and both were sold out. Both got standing ovations.
Yeah, I heard there was hundreds turn up to 2 separate shows, right?
Yeah. Completely packed. And the BBC tracked the whole process, which was scary for me.
So how will that come out? Is it like a series of
It's going to be,
series where it's filmed over?
no, it's going to be an episode of Imagine. Have you ever seen Imagine?
I don't know it because I'm not in the UK.
Oh yeah, you're not. Yeah, so it's BBC's kind of, it's like Panorama, but for the artists. You get a 1 hour or 90 minutes deep dive usually into one artist. Or they usually, stick with one person the whole way through. This project is slightly different for Imagine, in that it's a group of young artists, none of them famous. Usually Imagine is, we'll take this amazing dancer or this amazing painter or this amazing actor and we'll go deep into their life. So it's a bit of a scoop to have Imagine on board. It's a big program, and I think it's going to go out sometime during the summer, maybe July, but they're editing now.
Great.
But for these young people, we brought local people that had a tie to the borough who have gone on to do amazing things. So there was a Hollywood actor, Harris Dickinson, who's 22 years old, from the borough. He's now acting with Angelina Jolie, and he's going to be he's the next Kingsman. He's done a BBC series with Donald Sutherland. It wasn't a BBC, but it was shown on the BBC, I think, called Trust, about the John Paul Getty family. He's the young grandson in that. He just came and joined the circle. And, every time we met, after we'd done the bonding and got the 2 groups together, every now and again, someone else would come and join the circle, and they'd be like, "Oh, who are you?" And he's like, "Well, I'm an actor, and I'm from this borough, and I grew up in Walthamstow. I still live in Walthamstow." And then, "Oh, what kind of acting do you do?" "Well, I've just finished Maleficent with Angelina Jolie. I'm the prince in that, and I'm doing Kingsman." And these kids were just like, "Oh, okay, that's great. How long have you been acting?" And it just became easy. We had Talvin Singh.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about
came along and did a whole day with them, masterclass, and joined the circle. And it's just to let them see that these people are not superhuman.
Yeah, they're like me and you, and
they've developed a talent. They've expressed themselves. They've explored their talent. They've pushed themselves to the limits. They've learned new things. They've collaborated with new people, and they don't stop. They keep going and they keep pushing, and that's how you achieve.
And would you say that's been useful for them to see the many possibilities and just plant that seed?
Yeah.
And I guess it must have been amazing for you to kind of, you were kind of there to light the fuse, you and Bob and whoever's getting involved, and just, as you said before, that they've got it in the memory, so you just step back and watch
it bloom. I mean, we had professional footballers come down, we had YouTubers come, EastEnders actors and actresses, somebody, Kwame Kweyama, who's a very, very famous British actor, who was in Casualty but now runs the Young Vic. Kwame came down for a day with them. It just led them to, like, at the beginning, they were really excited and going mental about, we've got somebody famous coming. By the end of it, they were just colleagues. They were just colleagues. And we had people come up to us, professional, I don't know, we had some booking agents, some directors, theatre directors who had come to the show. And, they came up to me at the end and were asking me which drama school we selected the kids from.
Amazing.
And I was like, these kids have never been on stage.
And when you told them, they must have been blown away, yeah? Like, how did you do it? Oh,
yeah. Well, we did it in 3 months. Well, they did it in 3 months.
Yeah.
To go from not having a script, we didn't even have a script at the end. There was no script. We developed storylines, we blurred characters, we got this character and this idea and made them into one character. And we just did it. And we covered a huge range of topics that are pertinent to young people in East London now. There are stories being told about what it means to be young and live in East London,
Mm.
particularly the story about being a young black man in East London
Mm.
at the moment, it's a lie. I mean, there are horrific things happening, and I deal with a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm in Berlin and I'm hearing stories, and I see obviously what you share.
Yeah.
Yeah, it blows my mind. How do you navigate that as a young person? I mean, it's hard enough as an adult, right?
Yeah.
Just getting a glimpse, you know, before we started recording, right? I had a glimpse of the news, and I was like, no, switched it straight off. I was like, oh.
But I mean, the thing is that the truth is, one youth murder is horrific. It's too many. Any murder is horrific.
Mm.
But the way it's being reported, the stories that are being fed to us are skewing the issue. Far more adults kill each other than young people.
Mm.
Far more. 3 times as many. 3 times as many non-black people kill each other as black people. It's not a black problem. It's not a youth problem. We have a problem with violence. Most crime is plummeting, and violent crime is rocketing. Of all kinds, violence to loved ones within a family, domestic violence, all of that stuff, violence between friends, violence in pubs, violence to the self. All of this stuff seems to be skyrocketing, and it stems from it's the same stuff we've been talking about. When people lose their way, when people get stuck in their heads,
Yeah, I mean, I
make
totally
up stories and believe them.
Yeah, it's
It
coming from.
manifests as this stuff. That's what anxiety is. That's
Yeah,
what stress is. That's what anger is. It's when you're lost in these thoughts that they all get tangled up and knotted up, and it doesn't take a lot to strip them out.
yeah, I totally agree. It's that missing link where our experience comes from.
Totally.
In every case, as we've agreed, right?
Yeah.
The media just twist stuff, and you know they want to sell airtime and newspapers and that. So, you know, if it's a child or this, that, and the other, they'll put a label on it and they'll shine a light on it, and that's the problem. It's dangerous because people then believe that that's actually what's happening in London right now.
Yeah. I mean, we had a young man, he's still part of the group. He's 14 years old, has been kicked out of school, but he's bright. I mean, he's even though he's not at school now, he's going to do his GCSEs a year early. But he's on during the project, he was arrested for carrying a weapon. And obviously, with what was going on in the borough, it was a really difficult time in the borough. There was some very high-profile youth violence that got national attention. A 14-year-old guy was run down by a car on purpose, knocked off a motorbike, stabbed 7 times and killed. 14-year-old kid, Jaden Moody. And we were in a session when that happened. We were a mile or 2 away, and one of his cousins was in the group, and we didn't know. So all of this is going on as a backdrop to this project. And this young man, when I had a talk with him about why he's carrying, are you carrying a weapon? What's going on? He looked at me as if I was crazy. It's like, have you not seen the news? I have to carry a weapon. I'm 14. I'm black. I'm at risk. And in a lot of these young men's minds, there's how do you weigh it up? I might get arrested. I might get a fine. I might get a community order. I might get a tag. I might even go to prison for 6 months or a year. Versus I might die. That's the story they're telling. We've got a scenario that's happening where, for many generations now, many years, there's been, and I've been part of it. There's been really well-intentioned youth workers, community activists, community workers, people from the blue light services, working with young people around gangs, knives, guns, drugs, mental health, all of these horrific topics. And the way we approach them, the lens we use as a society to view these topics through is always the problem. We talk to young people about violence and knife crime from a very well-intentioned place, and we have done for far too long. Rather than talking to them about what we want, we're focusing on what we don't want. By perpetuating this conversation about violence, about gangs, about drugs, it's like me saying to you, don't think of blue.
Yeah, it's when parents say, stop doing that, or don't touch.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like the red button there, and you just gravitate towards it. it just keeps you focused on the problem, right?
So if you've got 100 kids in a room in a school, statistically, 2 or 3 of them might have some sort of connection to gangs and violence or drugs or one of those horrible issues. Let's say it's the gang thing or the knife thing. If we're going in and we're saying this is an anti-knife project, we want to talk to you about knives and look at these photographs of horrific knives, look at these photographs of terrible knife wounds. Let's bring in somebody who's been stabbed who'll talk to you about show you his colostomy bag. Let's get an ambulance man to come in and talk about the terror of, you know, meeting somebody, finding somebody on the pavement who's been knifed. 97 or 98 young people who had no concept about that will leave that room petrified.
Yeah, it wasn't even make sense to waste brain matter on until someone focused their attention to it, right? Yeah.
So they then, unfortunately, it seems that what seems to be happening is that some of them then will be so afraid that they'll be more likely to pick up a weapon. They'll be more likely to join the gang. That, I think, has been fueling this thing. So my approach, our approach within our practice is we can deal with those topics.
Can I ask you about that?
But we deal with them by focusing on what we want the outcome to be. So I won't deliver an anti-knife project. I'll deliver a project around how to generate peace.
Yeah.
Where do your emotions come from? How do you have a conversation with somebody that you disagree with without resorting to violence?
Yeah.
That it's just a slightly different. Again, it's that shift of perspective.
And can I ask you about that? Because I think you've hit the nail on the head when you talk about fear, right? And again, it's understanding where that feeling comes from and your experience of fear. And again, fear and separation are closely interlinked, right? I mean, it's not just young people, but especially in young people, I get that. You know, I can understand totally why it would make sense for a young person to go, okay, I'm going to have to protect myself because if I don't, then there's a good chance and, you know, something's going to happen if I go out tonight.
And if everybody thinks like that, everyone will be armed. That's not the solution. It can't be. So, I mean, even in this project, the stories that they had of what the other estate would be like. Oh, I've heard that they're really rough over there, and are we going to be safe? And you know, they're the same. They're the same people. There's no difference, really. You know, and there are loads of differences.
Yeah, but I think...
But that's not a problem. It doesn't need to be a problem. It's lovely. Differences are fantastic.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Differences are amazing because it's that diversity of going, wow, look what's in your neighborhood, in your community.
But it's this fear of unknown, isn't it? The fear of the unknown, the fear of mistakes, the fear of embarrassment, the fear, all of these things that are not real.
So would you say this is, I think what you're doing right with this project, and I know you're doing, it's not just this project, your wider work is the focus around this, that, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing in there is that if you get people together, then they don't have a choice because they're in dialogue, right? They're telling each other their stories, you know, from the heart. And then you're realizing that actually we're very much the same on one level, and that's everyone, right?
Yeah, I'm 100%.
Right, but on the other level, you're bringing in something in the mix that's completely fresh and new, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because exactly what you said there, the fear of the unknown is
but we play with that. We play with that throughout our process. So, you know, been doing it a long time, and we've got to the point, me and Bob particularly, that if somebody says we've got 200 kids in a room in 10 minutes, can you do something? We can go and do it. We're ready. The little simple exercises. I remember at the beginning of this process, so we're sitting in a circle, first of all, just discussing stuff, and then we get them to stand up. So we're going to do an activity. We want you to step into the middle and make one sound and one movement, and then we'll all copy you. And some people just go, you can see the fear on their face until they realize that, you know, one girl was like, I don't know what to say. And I said, look, you're making a big deal. If you'd stepped into the middle and gone, I don't know what to say, you would have been finished by now. Oh yeah, you're not being judged. It's one movement, one sound. And you're making this big whole story up about how embarrassing it is, and what if you don't do the sound properly? What if no one else can copy you? What if you fall over? What if you wet your pants? Well, 101 things going on. None of them are real. And having little physical activities, having the opportunity to take them out of London. I mean, the place that we took them to meet, we went in the snow. It was a weekend when it snowed. And they arrived at this venue separately, two separate minibuses, 22 of them, plus me and the rest of the team, and the BBC team. So quite a few of us. That night, after we'd settled into the rooms and had a tour of we stayed in a big manor house in the countryside. It's fantastic. It's owned by London Youth. So they're used to dealing with young people there. I go there loads and loads. I've been there for probably the last 15, 20 years I've been going there. Woodrow High House. It's in Buckinghamshire. It's the old Cromwell family home. It's got loads of history. It's great. Set in the big 20-something acres of grounds, and there's archery and football pitch and all kinds of stuff. So we settle in, have our dinner, and then we said, right, put your boots on, put your coats on. We're going for a hike. And they're like, but it's dark and it's snowing. Are you crazy? I'm like, oh, we're just going for a hike. Why not? So we did, and we take them off the site into the Chilterns, into the forest. We're just hiking, getting to know each other. We've all got torches. It's good fun. There's somebody there who's got a big torch and a first aid kit and knows the place and all of that. It's all risk assessed and safety and all of that. And then we got into this clearing, and we got them to stand in a circle. And I just said, so, listen to this. And then didn't say anything. And it was beautiful. Complete. You know how the snow even helps with silence? It changes acoustically some stuff.
Yeah.
Like one of the guys was just like, I've never heard that. There are no sirens. I can't hear my mum shouting at my brother. I haven't got music in my headphones. There's no TV on. There's no buses coming past. And then we spoke about the importance of silence and how, silence is where everything comes from. And how the solution to all that knotted up, crazy thinking about anxiety and fear and all of that stuff, the antidote to that is creating some silence up there. And how do you do that? And some of them were saying, but it's really difficult. And we were going, you're saying it's easy to have all that knotted up crazy thinking. Is that easy? That's really difficult. Creating the silence is much easier, and it's what you've been craving, because from that comes everything you want. Now they often refer to that moment, because we said to them, we're here physically in a circle, clearing, in the forest, in the snow, listening to nothing. But on the other level, the non-physical level, you have a memory of this that you can refer to anytime you want. You take this silence with you. You take this experience with you. And it's the same with everything. We have a physical body. And, there's been huge progress in science about how we deal with the physical body. Yeah. Despite my earlier comments about doctors, and there's amazing stuff happening in medicine, loads of medicine and surgery and stuff. It's phenomenal. It is miracle work. But we also have a non-physical self. And I don't really like to get into too much detail about whether that's a soul or a spirit or whether I'm part of the universal God. Everybody has their own version of what you call that. So if it's just physical, non-physical, that's nice and easy, and that fits in with every faith, every religion, whether you're an agnostic or an atheist. There's physical and there's non-physical. We, in modern society, have kind of neglected the non-physical. And, again, I can't remember who said it, but there's a lot of stuff about, I have a soul, but I am this, I am the physical. It's kind of the other way around. We are the non-physical and we have a body. And when we started to get into some of that, we didn't go too woo-woo and whatever with these young people, but when we started to get them to notice that the non-physical side of them was the side that is actually the side that creates their life. The body comes with it. Yeah. You have to conceive something in your mind before you can make it real.
Yeah. And I like the way you've made it simple, because we can overcomplicate these things, right?
I keep it easy.
Yeah. And as humans, it's great to debate and talk about it and agree and disagree. But I guess for what you need to do, to go straight to the point and just package it in such a way that's like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's beyond all of those man-made limitations and structures. It's beyond religion. Like if I try to do this, I'm not a Christian. If I try to do this as a Christian, then that limits who I can do this with.
Yeah.
If I try to do it as a Muslim or a Jew or a non-believer, it's beyond that. I do it as a human being. And that means, I mean, a story's just popped into my head of a different project. We were doing a project in a homeless hostel in East London as well. And I walked into a session and there was two guys, a Christian and a Muslim guy, arguing, like big arguing about faith. And each one telling the other one that they were wrong.
Yeah.
But they were both in the group and they both knew what we were about to do. So we got them back into the room, sat in a circle. And I said, before we start, can we just try and deal with whatever was happening just when I arrived? And they gave you a brief explanation of some technical point about God. And I said, well, can I tell you what I think? And they were like, yeah, okay. And I'm not saying this is right. You said what you think. He said what he thinks. I'd like to tell you what I think. So I'm from a mixed family. And in my family, there are some Jews, there are some Christians, there are some non-believers. I believe in the extended family now. We've got a couple of Muslims. It's all there. And what I know is that I believe in a force that created everything. I don't know the right word for it. One word that has come up is God. One word that has come up is Allah. These are words that human beings invented. But they didn't invent God, did they? They're like, no, God created everything. Okay. So this force that you call God and you call Allah created this planet, the trees, the animals, the fish, the wind, the sea, all of that. Yeah, yeah. And the other planets. Yeah. Okay. And the other galaxies. Yeah, yeah. And if you believe in these things, other universes too. Yeah, it's all God. Okay. So that force has existed long before Christianity, long before Islam, long before any other religion that man could make up. That's what I believe in, that thing. And they're like, okay, can we start?
Yeah.
Because we don't need to disagree like that. We can have discussions, we can have debates, we can argue, we can fight if we want, we can do all of that stuff. It doesn't change the stuff that's underneath it.
Yeah, and that stuff that's underneath it, whether we like it or not, we are part of the same. And it actually, as you say, when the barriers drop and you just have a nice conversation with another human,
Yeah,
then you're like, we're all the same. But we do have different.
Like your faith is kind of like an accident of birth. You know, if you were born in a different country or in a different family,
you'd have a different faith or different belief system.
Have a different view of everything, yeah. But that doesn't mean that you have to hate everybody else, or not tolerate everybody else.
As you say, I mean, a lot of the hate and fear is just a simple misunderstanding because you don't have an experience of that other human being, and then you get into a story with them, and you're like, wow, okay, why have I not done this before? I've been fearing this conversation, and now I'm like, wow, I want to spend more time with you. It's like, oh, okay.
So over the years, we in my practice, me and the team have done lots of conflict resolution and restorative justice and restorative practice and behavioural management programs and anti-violence and anger management. And it really comes down to we call it the map, our map of the world. If I preface everything that I say with "in my map of the world," it kind of negates any argument. Even if what I believe as a human being is abhorrent to the other human being. If I was a crazy fascist racist, rather than saying I hate, if I said, well, in my map of the world, these people are ignorant, they're criminals, they're whatever, it's only my map. And it's different to your map.
Yeah, well, the map's not the territory. You've heard that before, right?
And I'm not saying that my map is right or your map is wrong. I'm just saying we have a different map. When we come at it with this full, I'm right, which by definition, we all think that we're right about our own maps, our own beliefs. And we use this in our work. We actually use maps. We put maps up on the screen and we show people, you know, the different maps, the different ways you can see the world. The Australian map is upside down. And, you know, if there was a map made by aliens, would they recognize countries? Or would they look down on the earth and go, well, that's France, that's England. They wouldn't see any of that. They're not real, they're concepts.
Yeah, and they're not going to give a crap about borders, let's be honest, right?
But these things lead, when you believe in them wholeheartedly and say, that is the truth, I am right, it leads to that, which is conflict. And that conflict can be inner, it can be outer, it can be person to person, it can be you know, class to class, it can be school to school, it can be country to country, but it's the same root cause. It's the same. And I think that, you know, there's a lot happening. Yesterday we had the European elections, there's Brexit. I don't want to talk about that. Sorry for bringing up the
let's get on that topic.
mention the B word. There's you know, Mr. Trump. There's all of this crazy stuff happening on the planet, but there's also a gathering force of particularly young people that are going, the way you lot see the world is wrong, and their map of the world is going to be very different.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what warms my heart, because I constantly am pointed towards stories in the news. It's obviously not mainstream media, but for every shitty story that creates fear and divides people, I see other stories all over the planet, not just in Europe, you know, everywhere, if you're just willing to open yourself up. And that's what keeps me going. I don't know about you, but you know, sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I trying to help people or coach people or do any of this? But then why would you not? Because we're all part of that same thing. And it's only when we watch the news for 10 minutes that it actually separates you. You're like, okay, back in the room, switch it off.
Yeah. And then how could I see it differently? I mean, how could Trump be good news? It seems like a horrific question, a challenging thing, but I think that there's going to be a backlash globally where people are like, this is not the way. This cannot.
I totally agree on that, that it's gone so far that, and you probably see it more than anyone, because you work, you know, your job is to work with young people every day, that it just doesn't make sense to them. And why would it?
No.
Why would it? Because it's their time now. And I think as adults, we need to step back and, you know, I think one of our mentors in the past used to say, you know, don't put your hands in the machinery. You know, the young people, they know what to do. You know, their wisdom's going to point them. So as adults, sometimes we need to know when to shut up, right?
And let them get on with it. Hand them the reins.
Yeah.
And, you know, there'll be ups and downs. And we had conversations during Eastside Story where some of the young people were like, how can we possibly vote for any of these jokers? So they see the system just not working. It's weird, but it's a pleasure and a real privilege to be able to do this work with people that often have been written off. You know, they've been told that they can't. They've been told that they shouldn't. They've been told that they mustn't. They've been told that they just useless. Quite often.
And can I ask you, is it a lot of the time, is it adults that are telling that, or is it just society in general or the community? How does that work?
No, both. Both. And it comes down to, again, you know, it is about, you know, you can take the viewpoint that you need to see something to believe in it, or you can take the viewpoint that you need to believe something to see it. So I'm trying to think of an example. We have had young people who have said, well, you know, I can't read and write. And we said, okay, well, you're 15 years old. If you add yet to the end of that sentence, what changes? Because do you want to be 40 years old and saying you can't read and write? No. Okay, so when are you going to? Well, I find it really difficult. Yeah, that's the reason. But you know, when you first started to walk, was that easy? No. You were rubbish. You fell over a lot. But you didn't just say, well, I can't walk. In your head, you said, I can't walk yet. And you kept putting in the effort. You kept trying. In fact, the thing that you found the most hard, you had to do more of. So what would happen if you did more reading and more writing, even though you find it a challenge? Well, I'll get better at it. Okay. No, that's different to me going, but you're dyslexic. And you find it really difficult. So, you know, we'll put you in a different group.
Yeah.
It has to
be about this as well.
It has to be about their approach. It has to be about them going, yeah, I'm rubbish at that thing, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it.
But I can see that you see that really clearly, right? That we have to be careful really about the labels. And I see it all the time. And I have many discussions with wonderful people. But again, it's that it is a misunderstanding. They don't mean to, but we love as humans to pigeonhole things. We like to categorize.
Yeah.
That very thing actually just doesn't help resolve things, right? And especially for young people, because it's like, here's a hat, here's a dyslexic hat, here's a you've got learning difficulties hat. It's like, really? You know, why can't you be in the same class? You know, what is, do you really have to have a special school set up for someone?
We're all special needs.
Yeah, everyone's special needs.
Something. I don't know. It's an exclusive, an inclusive approach, where there is a place for every single person. But what you've just said, I mean, I can remember doing some work in that same homeless hostel where there was a guy who described himself as an alcoholic. But he hadn't drunk for something like 9 years. So, well, when are you going to stop describing yourself as an alcoholic? He said, no, it's a disease. It's an ongoing. I get lost in that. I understand that the process that he'd been through to help him stop drinking for 9 years is a fantastic process.
Yeah.
If you're counting the days, you're still thinking like a drinker. Surely it's helpful for him to go, I'm an ex-alcoholic.
Yeah, that's done. I've got over that.
Move on.
I'm now onto something.
I'm a non-drinker.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense to me, because surely then you're free to just get on with your life and do whatever you want, do amazing things. Yeah. And the fact that that person's got through all of that, to, you know, through a lot of challenges to actually stop drinking in the first place is amazing in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that missing step is that's done now. Yeah. It's like that, you've shed your skin. It's like a transformation. It's finished. Yeah. But again, and I do it as well, but we convince ourselves that we've still got that label, and we still must, you know, there must be challenges, it must be difficult, even though he's already got over the difficult bit. You know, the fact that he's there, he's alive, he's got up every day. I mean,
human beings are amazing, and often we forget how amazing we are, and whatever we can do for each other as human beings to help the other person to recognize their brilliance, and recognize what they bring to the table, it has to be a good thing. I mean, in that Eastside Story project, we had some, there are just people in that room that are so gifted and just don't believe it. I believe it more than them.
Well, would you say that? I mean, that's of any group. It has a guess, right? If you just picked at random any group of young people from your community,
anybody, anywhere,
once you've opened that door, you know, give them that seed of, there's a possibility that I could do this or that, or, oh, I didn't think about that. Actually, I'm going to have a go at it. And then, bam, what happens then? It's like,
oh, I can do it.
There's an explosion of creativity. And then what comes out? Something baked. And they've, I guess you're transforming lives in that case, you know?
Yeah, and I think it works because me and my colleague Bob and the rest of the team, we know that we don't do the transforming.
You're just creating the conditions for transformation.
Create a condition, we provide an opportunity with 100% knowledge that the transformation is going to happen because the people are going to do it. All change, even physical change, has to start in the mind. It has to. It's the only place. Once that change has happened, I mean, people think, oh, change is difficult and change takes forever, and it's instant when it happens. It just happens, and from that moment on, things can never be the same again. Yeah. Not to say that we don't, you know, we all have days when we fall off the wagon, and I'm guilty of it. I don't live my life completely positive thinking. I don't even think that's possible.
It's not possible, though, is it? And
I would never want it to be possible. It's recognizing the value of all of it. So the value of mistakes, the value of sadness, the value of loneliness, the value of pain.
You just said something really powerful there, that it's just accepting all of it. And that's the amazing thing about it. It's accepting that journey for what it is. Because I don't know about you, when I've tried to control it, you know, it must be better today, or I'm not feeling very confident, so I need to feel really confident. I don't know about you, that doesn't work, right?
It can't
control shit. It doesn't work that way, right? But as soon as I kind of, it's not like give up, but if you just embrace the fact that I can still get on with stuff regardless of what feelings are going on. And I think that was valuable to learn. Yeah. And I'm guessing that's useful for young people, that just because they're not feeling useful in that moment doesn't mean to say they can still crack on and go to school meet the friends, do whatever it is.
We had at the residential place, there's a big rope thing, a big A shape. You climb up and climb down the other side on it's quite a challenge. It's about, I suppose it was about the height of a house. It's quite high. One girl was quite scared at the bottom, but she's kind of psyched herself up. And she went, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And, I was talking with her and coaching her a little bit about, getting into the right state before she tried. She literally got to the top and then sat on the top and said, I've lost my confidence. I can't get down. And I went, it's not lost, I found it. You just dropped it. It's here. It's on the floor here. Do you want it back? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to stay up there with no confidence, or do you want to come down and get your confidence? And she was like, what are we talking about? But we'd had a conversation about what is confidence. It's not a thing. It's just in your head.
Yeah.
So we were just laughing and joking. And she was going, yeah, I want it back. And I was going, you better come down then. Because I can't bring it up. I'm not going up there. I'm too old. It's this abstract craziness that we buy into.
But what a wonderful position you're in to be able to have that lightness and point people to, the fact that we're laughing about it now, that's it though, isn't it? That's the key to life, that, when we get all serious in that, it's just if we can point ourselves back to, oh, okay, I've noticed it now. Okay, back in the room, it doesn't matter. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to do that with young people must be an amazing gift, right?
It's wonderful. And it, we've had huge cuts in the youth service in the UK. We've had massive cuts. But it has to change. We have to invest in our young people. They are, they've been viewed as kind of expenses that can be cut out and saved on some spreadsheet somewhere. It's so short-sighted. A little bit of investment.
Amazing. We invest in pension pots and things that they don't matter, right?
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, our future is our youth. It's young people. But they're going to be there when we're gone, let's be honest.
They're here now. They're growing up now. They're not going to stay young. That's a guarantee. They're going to grow up. If we invest in them, not just financially, but we invest in them, we nurture them, we support them. People can call it guiding them. I don't like that phrase. I don't think I can guide anyone. But it pays off. The dividends are immense. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing if that kind of project that you're pointing towards, what you've just done, which has obviously been successful, imagine if that was just second nature in every community. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, right? It doesn't have to be exactly like that. But bringing people together, that basis of, here's a space, come and meet, come and get to understand, talk about differences, and if you're fearful, no problem. I'm fearful as well. Let's get in a room and chat about it. Yeah. I guess amazing things happen.
And it's just a room. It doesn't even need to be in a room.
But what is it in the UK that, I grew up in an area where, I come from a working class, very humble background. We didn't have much money in that. But what was there before these massive cuts started happening in the UK? And you obviously know more about this. I had a youth club, and it saved my life, because I too could have got into drugs and gone completely off the rails, because I actually hated school and I was very fearful as a creative.
Right.
I was told I was a bit stupid, struggled with maths, learning difficulties and all that. But what really saved me is go into a space where people in the community and young people could go. And crucially, I got into things like football and judo. And actually, on a simple level, it was an empty room. We just got to chat.
That's all you need.
That was it. It was just
climbing walls and computer rooms.
So when I felt really low and fearful, I got in a room of people, and then I realized that everyone else felt like that. And I was like, oh my God, what's all that about? And then people were exploring that.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't actually need that much money, but it does need support. And what I was going to ask you, Robin, I've seen a post recently about people that do youth work. And correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it's like it's a nice to have. So there's a lot of volunteers, and I'm not saying that's not an amazing
No,
thing.
it's a great thing. And I work with loads of volunteers.
Yeah, but there should be more full-time employees, and there should be a whole focus on that side of it. And is that disappearing? I don't know about other countries, but
no, it's booming. Globally, it's booming. Other countries have recognised that the value of formal education, school, teacher relationship, teachers and pupils is one thing. And the other form of learning is the informal learning, the learning through experience rather than through being taught. which is what youth work is at its essence, is not frowned upon, but it is seen to be lesser. And it should not be. It should be up there. It should be a profession. This is my profession. I'm a professional youth worker. It's all I do, really. I mean, I work with families and adults and whatever as well, because young people don't exist in isolation. But if we can refocus it, how do we get to a place where, as a society, we've got footballers who are earning, 300 grand a week?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't. But then we've got people being murdered on the streets who are under 16 years old, and they turn to the youth workers and go, you need to help us with this. And the youth workers are on £10 an hour and they do 4 hours a week. That's insanity. It's a valuable role. Nurturing our children is the single most important role we have.
Yeah, well, I totally agree.
Globally.
The most important thing, yeah.
If we don't invest in that process, how can we possibly expect society to be better?
Well, that's the thing. Right now, and again, we've talked about there's not, there are positive things happening, but again, there's a lot of people that don't really see a value in it. But then that's where the future is, because, our young people, like you say, will become the future leaders. These are the people that are going to be there. And like any human being, we have a limited shelf life, right? So,
but at the moment, there was a time years ago when the UK was seeking to professionalise youth work. They were seeking to put it on a par with teaching. So to be a youth worker at a certain level, you'd have to have a degree in something related to youth work, informal education or community or relational practice or any of those things. Then that was all stripped away. So now to be a youth worker, you need to just say, I'll do it. Like, give me the keys, I'll open up, or I'll drive the minibus, which is a really difficult thing, because it is wonderful that we've got community members volunteering to help. That is a beautiful thing. But, if we said to the government, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another profession, if everybody who was a teacher said, I'll do it for nothing. I'll do it on a Tuesday and a Thursday between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. after my other job, which is my real job. It dilutes it somehow.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And there's nothing, again, just to be clear, there isn't nothing wrong with people volunteering or having a side hustle or doing it part-time because they're passionate about it. But like anything, it needs proper funding, and also it needs people who are qualified and experienced. And actually, crucially, they do it full-time in parallel. For me, you need both, right? You can't have one in isolation, right?
Imagine if you went to hospital and they said, well, you need this operation, and we've got a volunteer doctor.
You'd be like,
I'm not having him do it. I don't want him to do it.
Okay, but this is your... yeah.
It dilutes the whole value of the whole profession. Not to say that there isn't space for volunteers, not to say that there isn't passionate individuals who have had no training who are fantastic. That is all true. I mean, I got into youth work as a volunteer. I was like you. I used to make music and be involved in the music industry a bit, dabbled, and did some projects with young people, and eventually just thought, I love this. Let me switch. But you need to learn. You need to understand. Passion can take you so far.
Yeah.
And if you've got a team of 10 passionate volunteers or 10 passionate, part-time people, but there's a team of people whose job it is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, though, that because you're involved in that full-time, the thing is, you actually know where to get things. Or, for example, crucially, if you're going to do something and it's crucial that funding is going to be the difference, right? Or getting the right people involved at the right time. I guess it's like anything, due diligence, being a good project manager. But unless you've had that grounding and you've been doing it a while, and again, that experience of it, then the passion, like you say, will take you so far. But then you're gonna hit a brick wall at some point where you're like, shit, what do I do now? I guess you need a structure and support system and lots of people, because I'm guessing even to do that project you did, there's lots of moving parts, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And everything only works when we, back to where we started, when we collaborate, when we communicate effectively, when we come together and make it happen.
So can I ask you, what would you say to someone who was watching this that might be like, right, in the future, that is something that would light me up. But what would be the starting point if I wanted to get into a career of that? What would you say to them?
I would say volunteer. I would say get involved.
Mm.
But recognize that there comes a point where if you want to get involved fully, you may need to collaborate, and you may need to get trained, and you might need to study something. You need to make those decisions. I mean, there's loads of people, and obviously the journey that me and you have been on together, there's loads of people in the coaching industry who have said, I'd love to work with young people. I'm an executive coach, you know, I coach multi-billionaire executives. Surely young people can't be so different. And on one level, that's true. They are human beings, they function in the same way, they have thoughts, they have a physical body, they have a non-physical, all of that is the same. But there are other essentials that you need to know. You need to know about safeguarding. You need to know about, you know, the way that the whole structure of support around young people works, or maybe works is the wrong word at the moment. It doesn't work. Lots of it doesn't exist at the moment. But you can't just, because you want to, you can't just switch and become a youth worker. You know, I've been involved in some crazy conversations over the years where people have gone, well, I've set this project up for young people. We've got a website, we've got a venue booked. Do you know any young people? What do you mean? What? Surely you should be responding to young people, not just saying, well, I'll book a room. They will come, but I don't know any.
Actually, you've touched on an important point, because again, for things to work, and that's just, it's any human, right? I want to engage people at the start, at the grassroots. I don't even like that word, but, you know, initially, if I come to you, Robin, with an idea, and, you know, I know you've got experience of it, crucially, I'd want to involve some young humans as well, because I'm not saying it might not be a bad thing to do, but crucially, to get buy-in and to get people involved, I'd want some people, the very demographic that I'm trying to help, actually involved from the very minute that it comes out my head, you know.
Yeah. And yeah, I've had projects over the years where people have been like, well, how do you engage with young people? Where do you find them? Well, we know where they are. They're at school, they're at college,
Yeah.
they're in the shopping centre, they're walking down the road. You talk with them. That's how
you engage, right? You have a conversation and you say, I'd like to do this. Would that work? Would that excite you?
Yeah.
Again, remember that project I said, I did a few little things a long time ago in the UK, and I literally got dragged into it kicking and screaming, because I was actually fearful, because I was like, oh, I don't know how to work with young people. I'm not a teacher. And it was one of the most amazing things I ever did. And it was simply just a summer project to help kids learn how to DJ. And then crucially, they did a live performance.
Yeah.
But if I was to do that on my own, it wouldn't have got anywhere near it, because already someone had engaged the kids and got them in a position where, would you like to do something? We don't know what it is yet, but we're going to bring some other people in who'll give you some detail. And crucially, they're actually musicians and this, that, and the other. So that's the thing. I don't think people's hearts are in a bad place, or, you know, people are passionate, right? But it's just knowing that, you know, if you're going to do something and you really want it to work, who might be useful? And again, you know, I think one of our past mentors used to say a lot, for what purpose, right? It's like, and again, the only purpose that's going to be purposeful is probably hearing it from young people in the first place. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Wow.
Oh, what a conversation.
Wow. Yeah, we've gone for a long time, actually.
Just looking at that,
yeah. Just to wrap it up, and by the way, thank you.
No, thank you too.
I've really enjoyed this.
It's a pleasure to see you again.
I hope people, you know, who are watching, find it useful.
I hope so too.
And just for anyone, you know, who wants to reach out to you and engage and just find a bit more, I mean, obviously I'll put some links on there.
Cool.
What's the best way of reaching out to you?
RobinLockhart.net is nice and easy, and from there you can find the charity, the social enterprise, and all the other bits and pieces. I am on Facebook. There's a page, Robin Lockhart. I think if you search at molehills out of mountains, you'll find me.
Got you.
Which is a phrase a young person gave me.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. What you do, you turn mountains into molehills. You make molehills out of mountains. Like,
that's exactly what you do, though.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, thank you for that.
Yeah, put some links. I'll send you a link to the Eastside Story film. And what I'll do, as soon as we know the broadcast date, I'll let you know as well.
Yeah, please share it. And obviously, at some point, this will go out. And then what I'll do, I'll obviously check in with you. You know, we're always speaking to each other anyway.
And I think, you know, it's a big thing for the BBC. That the Imagine is a global it won't just be broadcast in the UK, it'll be on BBC Worldwide and
Okay.
kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
then I'll make sure I share it as well. All right,
Awesome.
thanks, Robin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Oh, you too.